The U.S. Department of Energy estimates that how you drive, not what you drive, not the price of gas, not the size of your engine, can affect your fuel economy by anywhere from 10 to 40% depending on the situation. That is not a rounding error. On the average American fuel budget of roughly $2,500 a year, that range represents between $250 and $1,000 that either stays in your pocket or goes straight to the pump, based entirely on habits most drivers picked up without ever being taught the cost of them. Nobody sat you down and explained what running your engine at the wrong RPM actually does to your consumption. Nobody told you what that bag of road salt still sitting in your trunk from February is costing you every single day. Nobody walked you through why the first 2 minutes of air conditioning on a hot day costs more than the next 20 combined. That is what this video is. 7 habits. All of them free to change. No parts. No shop visit. No subscription service. Just the information, sourced, explained plainly, and applied to the car you are already driving. We are going to go through each one in order, starting with the one that costs the most drivers the most money for the least obvious reason, and building toward the single habit that ties all the others together. Let's get into it. Habit 1. You are carrying weight you forgot you had. Open your trunk right now, or picture it in your head. What is in there? If you are like most American drivers, the honest answer is, more than you think. Emergency kits assembled 3 winters ago and never touched since. A full-size spare sitting on top of the jack that came with the car. Bags from a hardware run last month. Golf clubs. A stroller the youngest outgrew. Boxes that were supposed to go to a storage unit 6 months ago. This is not a small problem. The Department of Energy publishes a straightforward figure. Every 100 pounds of extra weight in a passenger vehicle reduces fuel economy by approximately 1%. That sounds modest until you do the arithmetic. If you are carrying an unplanned 200 pounds, and research consistently shows the average American driver is hauling somewhere close to that in forgotten cargo, you are burning roughly 2% more fuel on every single mile you drive. Across 12,000 miles annually, that is a real, measurable cost you are paying silently. There is a second side to this that most fuel-saving content skips entirely, the roof rack. If your car has a roof rack or a cargo carrier that stays mounted year-round, whether or not you are actively hauling anything, you are paying an aerodynamic penalty every time you drive. A 2019 AAA study, one of the most detailed in-market tests done on this specific question, measured the real-world fuel economy impact of roof accessories at highway speeds. An empty roof rack alone reduced fuel economy by up to 11% at 65 miles per hour. An empty rooftop cargo box pushed that figure even higher. The fix here is 10 minutes. Pull everything out of the trunk that does not belong on every single trip. Keep a proper spare, a jack, jumper cables or a jump starter, and a basic emergency kit. Everything else comes out. And if that roof rack has not had cargo on it in the past month, take it off. It comes back on in 5 minutes when you need it. The weight and drag you remove today saves money starting on your next drive. Habit 2. Your tires are probably low right now, and you cannot see it. This one catches drivers off guard because the problem is invisible. A tire that is 6 psi below the recommended pressure does not look flat. It does not look low. It looks completely normal standing next to the car. But what is happening inside the tire, between the rubber and the road, is costing you money on every single mile you drive. Here is what is actually happening. An underinflated tire has more of its sidewall making contact with the road than it should. That increases what engineers call rolling resistance, the force your engine has to overcome just to keep the wheels turning. More resistance means the engine works harder. The engine working harder means more fuel burned. The U.S. Department of Energy publishes a specific figure on this. Keeping all 4 tires properly inflated can improve your fuel economy by up to 3% compared to running them significantly low. That may not sound like much, but paired with the other habits in this video, small percentages compound into real annual savings. What makes this habit particularly important is that tire pressure drops on its own, without any puncture, without any visible damage, simply through normal use and temperature change. Most tires lose 1 to 2 psi per month through natural permeation of the rubber. And for every 10 degrees Fahrenheit the outside temperature drops, your tires lose approximately 1 psi. That means a car with properly inflated tires in October can be running 4 or 5 psi low by December without a single thing going wrong. It just happens, quietly, while you are paying for the extra fuel it creates. The correct pressure for your specific tires is on a sticker inside the driver's door jamb, not on the tire sidewall. The sidewall number is the maximum the tire can handle, not the operating target. These are two different numbers, and confusing them is a common mistake. The more practical solution, and the one that actually removes the excuse, is a portable 12-volt inflator. A quality unit runs between $30 and $50, plugs into your car's power outlet, fits in the trunk, and lets you check and correct your pressure at home, in a parking lot, or anywhere else. You check when the tires are cold, which gives you the most accurate reading. You do not need a gas station. You do not need quarters. The barrier disappears entirely. Build the habit simply, once a month, and every time the temperature swings more than 15 degrees in either direction, check all 4 tires. It takes 3 minutes. The cost over a year in time is negligible. The return in fuel savings and tire longevity is not. Tires that are consistently run at correct pressure also wear more evenly, which extends their usable life. On a set of tires that costs $600 to $800 to replace, that matters. Habit 3. You are using air conditioning at the worst possible moment. Most drivers treat air conditioning as a simple on-off decision. You are hot, you turn it on. You are cool, you turn it off. That feels logical. But the timing of when you run it matters more than whether you run it at all, and most drivers are using it at the single most expensive moment in the entire drive. Here is what is happening mechanically. Your car's AC compressor is driven directly by the engine. When it kicks on, the engine takes on additional load to power it. That additional load consumes fuel. The Department of Energy notes that running air conditioning can reduce fuel economy by more than 25% in certain conditions, specifically, short trips in high heat where the compressor is running at maximum effort from a standing start. That last part is the key. The most expensive moment to run your AC is the first 2 minutes after you start the car on a hot day. The cabin is at its highest temperature. The engine is still cold and working harder than normal to reach operating temperature. The compressor kicks on at full load, and the car is sitting still or barely moving, which means no airflow is helping the system at all. That combination, maximum heat, cold engine, full compressor load, zero road speed, is where fuel consumption spikes hardest. The fix is a small adjustment to your sequence, not a sacrifice of comfort. Before you get in on a hot day, open the doors or crack the windows for 30 to 60 seconds. You are not trying to cool the car. You are venting the superheated air that has been trapped inside. A cabin that has been sitting in direct sun can reach 130 to 170 degrees Fahrenheit internally, according to studies from the Department of Geosciences at San Francisco State University. That trapped air needs somewhere to go before the AC can work efficiently anyway. Let it out before you start the engine. Once you are moving, keep the windows down for the first minute or two. Let the airflow from the road do the initial temperature drop. Then switch the AC on. At that point, the cabin is no longer an oven. The engine has begun warming up, and the compressor is not fighting the worst conditions all at once. There is also a moment at the end of the drive that most drivers miss. 2 minutes before you arrive at your destination, turn the AC off. The cabin is already cool. The air already in the system will maintain a comfortable temperature for those final minutes without the compressor running at all. It is free comfort the system already paid for. One more thing worth addressing directly. A lot of fuel-saving content tells you to skip AC entirely and drive with the windows down. That advice is partially correct and partially wrong, and the line between them is speed. Below roughly 45 to 50 miles per hour, open windows add negligible aerodynamic drag and the AC compressor costs more to run. Windows down makes sense. Above that threshold, open windows create enough drag that the fuel cost exceeds what the compressor uses. At highway speeds, AC with windows up is the more efficient choice. The goal is not less comfort. It is smarter timing. Those are genuinely different things. Habit 4. You are driving past the point where your engine works best. Every car has a speed range where its engine, transmission, and aerodynamics are working together with the least possible effort. Outside that range in either direction, you are spending extra fuel for every mile you travel. Inside it, you are as close to optimal as the car was designed to run. For the vast majority of American passenger cars and light trucks, that range sits between 45 and 55 miles per hour. This is not opinion. FuelEconomy.gov, the joint resource maintained by the DOE and EPA, states clearly that fuel economy typically peaks in this window and drops off on both sides. The reason above 55 miles per hour is physics. Aerodynamic drag, the resistance the car body has to push through the air, increases with the square of your speed. That means it does not scale gradually. It accelerates. Going from 55 to 75 miles per hour does not add a small amount of drag. The drag force roughly doubles. Your engine has to work significantly harder to maintain that higher speed, and that work comes directly out of your fuel tank. Fueleconomy.gov puts a practical dollar figure on this. For every 5 miles per hour you drive above 50 miles per hour, you are effectively paying roughly an additional 22 cents to 30 cents per gallon for the fuel you are using at that speed. On a long highway trip, that adds up to a real, measurable cost. Now, a direct acknowledgement. You cannot safely cruise at 50 miles per hour on most American interstates. Traffic flows at 65 to 75 miles per hour on the majority of U.S. highways, and matching that flow is both practical and legally required in many states. This is not advice to drive dangerously slowly. What it is a framework for understanding where your fuel dollars are going and for making smarter decisions on roads where you do have a choice. Rural highways, 2-lane state roads, light suburban stretches, back roads between towns. Any road where you have genuine speed flexibility, staying in the 45 to 55 window makes a real difference. Most drivers default to the highest speed they feel comfortable at without thinking about what it costs. Once you understand the drag curve, that default starts to change naturally. There is a second layer to this that goes beyond the speedometer. It involves your tachometer, the dial that shows engine RPM, or revolutions per minute. Most drivers never look at it. Most naturally aspirated gasoline engines, meaning engines without a turbocharger, operate near their best thermal efficiency between roughly 1,500 and 2,500 revolutions per minute at a steady cruise in their highest gear. Below that range, the engine is lugging. Above it, the engine is working harder than necessary. That middle window is where combustion is most complete, where the fuel-to-distance ratio is at its best, and where the engine is doing real work without being stressed. If your car has a tachometer, glance at it the next time you are cruising comfortably on a relaxed stretch of road at around 50 miles per hour in your highest gear. That needle position is your reference point. It is what efficient looks like on your specific car. Understanding your efficient speed window does not require changing how you drive on busy highways. It requires paying attention on the roads where you already have room to choose. Habit 5. Slow acceleration is not efficient acceleration. This is the habit that surprises most careful drivers because it runs directly against what feels responsible behind the wheel. There is a widespread belief that gentle, slow acceleration saves fuel. The logic seems sound. You are not stomping on the gas, you are being careful, therefore you must be saving something. The problem is that belief is wrong, and it is costing the drivers who hold it real money every single time they pull away from a stop. Here is what is actually happening inside the engine during acceleration. Every automatic transmission moves through a sequence of gears on the way up to cruising speed. Lower gears are shorter gears. They generate more pulling force but spin the engine faster at any given road speed. Higher gears are taller. They let the engine turn more slowly while the car moves at a comfortable speed. The goal, from a fuel efficiency standpoint, is to get into the highest gear as quickly as possible and settle into a cruise. When you accelerate very slowly, you stay in those lower gears far longer than necessary. The engine is spinning at higher RPM, working harder than it needs to, burning more fuel per mile, all because you are dragging the car forward gently from a low gear when the transmission is waiting for enough momentum to shift up. Firm, smooth, deliberate acceleration, the kind that moves the car with purpose without aggressively pushing the engine past 2,500 revolutions per minute, gets you through the gear changes quickly and into the efficient cruise range sooner. Less time in lower gears, less fuel burned getting to speed. The target is not to be the quickest car off the line. The target is to spend the minimum time in the part of the power band that costs the most, and the maximum time in the part that costs the least. One important counterpoint worth addressing directly. Some content on fuel-efficient driving advises never exceeding 3,000 revolutions per minute under any circumstances. Followed too rigidly, that advice creates its own problem. Gasoline direct injection engine, which now power a large share of American vehicles, including most modern Hondas, Toyotas, and GM vehicles, are prone to carbon buildup on intake valves when they are operated exclusively at low RPM and light throttle for extended periods. Occasional driving at higher RPM helps burn off deposits and keeps the combustion system clean. The goal is not permanent low RPM operation. It is avoiding unnecessary high RPM during routine acceleration. The practical habit is straightforward. When the light turns green, accelerate with enough intent to move through the gears smoothly. If your car has a tachometer, keep the needle below 2,500 revolutions per minute through the shift points. If you do not have a tachometer, use your ear. You are looking for the engine to sound like it is working at a relaxed pace, not straining or revving hard. One note for drivers with CVT transmissions: the continuously variable transmissions found in many Nissans, Subarus, and Honda Civics. CVTs do not have fixed gear steps, so the traditional shift-early logic applies differently. The principle remains the same. Moderate, steady throttle input keeps the CVT operating in its efficient ratio range rather than holding a high engine load. Smooth and deliberate is not the same as slow and tentative. That distinction is worth committing to memory. Habit 6. Your car can slow itself down for free. Most drivers never use it. Every fuel-injected car built in the last 25 years has a feature built directly into its engine management system that most drivers have never been told about. When you are driving with a gear engaged and you lift your foot completely off the accelerator, the engine's computer recognizes that no throttle input is being requested and cuts fuel delivery down to near zero. The engine is still spinning. The wheels are still connected to the drivetrain. But the engine's own compression is doing the work of slowing the car, and it is doing it while burning almost nothing. This is called deceleration fuel cutoff, and it is standard on virtually every modern fuel-injected vehicle. It is not a workaround. It is designed behavior. The practical habit is simple. Stop reaching for the brake the instant you see a reason to slow down. Lift off the gas first. Let the engine braking work. Use the actual brake pedal only when you genuinely need to bring the car to a full stop, not the moment you first notice a slowdown ahead. There is a secondary benefit that compounds over time. Brake pads wear in direct proportion to how often and how hard they are applied. A driver who consistently uses engine braking and arrives at stops already slowing can realistically double the lifespan of their brake pads compared to a driver who brakes reactively from speed. A single brake job at a dealership or chain shop typically runs $300 to $500 per axle. That saving is real money, in addition to the fuel. One clarification worth making: this habit refers to light engine braking by simply lifting off the throttle in drive. It does not mean aggressively downshifting an automatic transmission to force deceleration. That puts unnecessary stress on the drivetrain and is not recommended for routine driving. Habit 7. Everything else depends on this one. The previous 6 habits all work, but none of them work as well as they should unless this last one is in place, because this is the habit that creates the conditions where all the others can actually be used. It is called anticipatory driving, and it comes down to one straightforward shift in where you are looking while you drive. Most drivers focus on the car directly in front of them. Their reactions are governed by what is happening at their front bumper. That is reactive driving, and it is expensive, in fuel, in brake wear, and in stress. Anticipatory driving means consistently reading the road 15 to 20 seconds ahead of your current position. At 40 miles per hour in the city, that is roughly 2 to 3 blocks. At highway speeds, it is close to a quarter mile. When you see a light change to yellow 2 blocks ahead, you lift off the gas now. You coast on engine braking. By the time you arrive at that intersection, it may have cycled back to green and you pass through without stopping, without braking hard, and without having to accelerate from zero. Or it stays red, but you arrive rolling slowly instead of arriving at 35 miles per hour and standing on the brakes. Research on eco-driving training, including studies from the Transport Research Laboratory, consistently documents fuel savings of 10 to 25% for drivers who develop this habit compared to their own reactive baseline. Same car, same route, different results. Building it takes deliberate practice for roughly 2 to 3 weeks before it becomes automatic. A simple starting point: at your next red light, instead of watching the car in front of you, look 2 lights ahead. What are they doing? What is the traffic pattern beyond the next block? You are training your eyes to stop fixating on the immediate and start reading the pattern. Once you start seeing the road that way, you do not go back. 7 habit: no parts, no repairs, no expense. Clean weight out of the trunk. Keep tire pressure correct year-round. Use AC with timing, not just instinct. Stay in your car's efficient speed range where roads allow. Accelerate with intent, not timidity. Let the engine do the braking. And look further ahead than the car in front of you. Applied consistently, these habits can reduce your annual fuel costs by 15 to 30% according to DOE data, using the car you already own, starting on your next drive. Drop a comment below and tell me which of these 7 you are changing first. And if you want to go deeper, the next video is already on screen.